So you're flying along, you're all over the place, you're going up, down, your thrust vectoring's moving, then you get, I need help. Get rid of it. Just flip the switch, and it doesn't work. Turn the switch on, and you're good. Hello everyone, welcome back to Motion RC. I'm James, and today we're going to be working on the thrust vectoring upgrade set for your Freewing MiG-29 and getting it installed. Now, as you can see, I've already installed one side, so in this video, we're just going to install the one side, and then you got to do, obviously, for both. Now, when you get your box with the thrust vectoring unit in, it's nice box in there, and you're going to see you get both your thrust vectoring units. These are just some of my tools I've been using, but what's it called? They come in this nice, they come wrapped in foam. There's a top part and the other one's facing the other direction. But coming out of the box, it comes in basically two pieces. And you got your thrust vectoring unit and then a little foam piece insert that's going to, shroud it and cover it and make it look, nice when it's installed, because it gets, in essence, installed upside down. And it's just a simple process of gluing it on and then connecting your wiring through the bottom of the aircraft to get to your receiver. So the aircraft, the thrust vectoring kit, I should say, does come with some Y leads and some extensions that get you all the way, more than enough extension to get you to wherever your receiver lives in the cockpit, because again, the MiG has a huge cockpit. You could have the receiver numerous places in there, but overall, I did the one side just to test it for myself, because I'd never done this before, and it went together pretty easily, and I could turn on my transmitter. But you can see now we are plugged in. I've got throttle cut on, which I hope, yep, throttle cut is on. But when I use my elevator, you can see we get up and down. And when I use my rudder, I get my roll. Now that is, what's it called? That is in there as a mix. So the mix is what's doing that within the transmitter. So again, I have the pitch mixed in with the elevators, and I have the rudder mixed in with the roll on that, and I also have it on a switch. So if I was in a bad position that I don't like, I could flip the switch, and now there is no thrust vectoring at all. So that's the way I'm going to do it on my maiden. I want to take off, get it up nice and high, flip the switch, see how she acts, because I've never flown the MiG with thrust vectoring, and and then take it from there. So let's get started with the assembly of at least one side of the thrust vectoring unit, and again, you're going to do this for both sides. All right, so step one is going to be removing the foam that's already on the aircraft to replace. So you can see I've already done it for this side, and it's two pieces. This is where your EDF fan lives, so you're going to take this off, and then it's this piece that you're going to peel off, and it's foam, and it's all already put on with glue. So it's just a matter of sort of prying it off. I used a little hobby saw from Benchcraft that we have to get into the tougher glue, because as you can see, my model's not perfect. I've had accidents in the past, so I've glued this on a little bit. So if yours is brand new, it's going to be a lot easier. But for the purpose of this, just get ready, or you could stick a little X-Acto knife in the seams to take it apart. But let's get started. First things first is going to be the nozzle, and that is, again, just pry it. You'll hear it. Don't go too, you don't want to go too rough, but it just peels right off, like so. So we have our nozzle is off, and now for this part, you do want to take off, again, take off the part where you would get access to your motor unit. So take out these two screws, and again, you can see mine's not perfect. It's been foam filled a bit, but let's peel that up, because I glued it in a little bit. So normally this would just pop off, but you see mine, take it off. So now that that's off, you want to take this piece off. So this is where you might need a hobby knife, but I'll see if I'm able to just pry this piece off easier. There it is, and it pops right up and like that. So if you just pry it, and you can see the beauty is on your thrust vectoring kit, it's already molded. So you can see the old piece, there's a piece of plastic that's down here And that's a molded piece that was molded in the original side, and it's molded in there. So that lets you know which side is which too. Obviously, when you do your thrust vectoring kit, I just right off the top of my head, I got lucky, but I assumed you want the servo arm that's showing to be inside. So when you're looking at the plane on the outside, you're not going to see the wiring or the servo arm. That's all going to get tucked away between the nozzles in the back. But now that that is off, so I didn't have to use the hobby knife, which is nice. You can see you're just going to basically be fitting this down here. But now you want to, let's take out, this is just, it's clipped on nicely, and you don't need this clip anymore, this like little plastic clip. That just peels right off. That was just to help your leads live. And it's going to fit. Let's just do a quick dry fit. And there's 4 little nubs, there's little foam nubs that, again, gets the perfect spacing. And you can see it's gonna live right there like so. Perfect. So that's what we're gonna wanna glue down, but you wanna make sure you have this second piece that sort of falls off. That you wanna make sure is gonna be glued in. So this was actually the first piece that I glued on the other side. So let's do that now. So I'm gonna take so step 2, let's start scoring. So this is gonna get glued to the back of the aircraft down here. And again, it only fits one way with this molded nub here that makes it even easier for it to fit. But I like to score it up because this is painted. So you don't wanna glue paint on paint. You wanna glue plain on foam. And then over here, I just want to score up a bit on this side because there's going to be some paint, there's going to be some leftover glue residue from the first one. But once that's done, I'm taking the same glue that comes with all the Freewing models. It's like their version of foam tack, the King Boxer. But it works great, and I'm just going to get that all over. And you can see this is going to fit like so. Then I'm going to peel it off a little bit, let some air into the mixture, wait about 60 seconds, and then press it back on, and that part will be done. So now the next step, again, score a little bit because you're going to have some glue residue from what you removed. Try to take off any of the glue that you can. Just creates a little more surface area for the glue to adhere to. And then we're going to get our glue. I like to put it on the nub, keeping our wires out of the way. Just line it up, drop it in. You just want to press it down. Then we can lift it up, let a little air in. Hold that for about 60 seconds. So now while that's drying, what you're going to notice is it's hard to tell which lead is which. One is going to be for the pitch servo, one is for the roll servo. So I want to take a quick servo tester and I want to test these babies out. But you know what I'll do first? I will add our Y leads to each one, test them so I know which is which and where to plug in. I've already put the, or extension leads I should say, I already put the Y leads into the receiver in the front, so it'll be easy for me to just plug in because the mix is already set up, and I'll show you the mix page on my Futaba when it's time. But now we have our servo lead, our long leads, so I can bring these out here, make it a little easier to show. So we're down digital. So that is for our roll. We're going to know that this is for our pitch. There we go. Good. So now I just want to label those quick. I'm just going to put one little piece of blue tape. That's just so I know that this was pitch. So I'm going to get this back on, and you can see it's going to fit exactly as it did originally. So we can get our 2 screws back in. So now what you're going to see, I'm going to lift the aircraft towards you, quick, and you're going to see where the wires of the other one sort of live. So I went, there we go, So I went across, and I didn't tighten these down yet, these wires, so I'm gonna have them live up there. You could snake the wires through the inside if you want, but I didn't like that idea because I don't like anything in front of my fan in my ducts. That's how it goes. So I just punctured a little hole in here. Where is it? Over here. There it is. I just made a little hole with a screwdriver, opened it up, and that's where I sent the first 2 wires. So that's where I'm gonna send the next 2 right through, and then plug them into my receiver. So let me do that now. I could have them live with a little bit of foam tack. I'm gonna have them live right up into the top, or maybe a little hot glue.
Little gray tape.
Little gray tape. Blender tape. That's how they would essentially live when that goes. All right, so now at this point, we can flip our aircraft over, and I'll show you how to plug it in, and then I'm gonna show you my transmitter setup for a mix. All right, so I snaked my wires through to the front, but now here's where it depends on the type of receiver you're gonna use and how many channels you wanna need. Because you can set up your thrust vectoring numerous different ways. The kit itself comes with 1 wide lead. The roll that you're gonna work into your rudder, when you Y those 2 servos together, they're gonna move together. The issue is on the thrust vectoring kit, they don't give you a Y lead for the pitch. Because just like your elevator servos in a plane, one is usually a regular servo and one is a reverse servo. You can always tell the difference because a reverse servo uses white, red, and black, and a regular servo uses the orange red like you would normally see, like you just saw. The orange, the brown, and the red, if you will. So these thrust vectoring units come with 2 regular servos. So if you try to Y the elevator in to its own port, when you try to mix, one is going to go up and one is going to go down. So being that I only have a Futaba 8 channel available to me, and I've already wired off my flaps and my BEC to give me the 2 channels, the 2 spare channels, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove one of the servos because they're just 9 gram, and I'm going to put in a reverse servo instead to save myself the hassle of trying to buy a receiver and wait for a receiver with more channels. If I had a 10 channel receiver, this wouldn't be a problem at all because I'd wire the rudders into 1 open channel and then have 2 extra channels for each individual pitch servo in each thrust vectoring unit that I would do separate mixes for. But for the purpose of this, again, this is just one workaround to it, and I'm just going to show you how I do that now. So first things first, I'm going to peel off the cover. You can see the same as taking apart anything else. Peel it off, and we want to expose. That's the servo I want. And now what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to pull the servo up and out. You can peel it out. Again, it's just, they're glued in nice and tight. There it is. So I'm going to peel that out. But what I want to do is I'm going to save that arm because the arm is was set up already when I plugged it in. So I'm going to reuse the servo arm that's a part of this servo. That's all, the arm is already nice and set. And then I can just peel out. It's just tucked into the a little trough in the back, and since I had it plugged in to a Y lead already, that's just gonna come out. So now that servo's out. So now my new servo though, I do want to make sure it's centered. So we already have our servo tester available to us. Servo tester, plug in a battery. So now I know that that servo is centered because I just centered it in my servo tester. I'm gonna put this servo back and put the arm where it belongs on here, centered. There it is. And then that's gonna live right in there. And I'm gonna wire it back and glue it back in. So let me get some glue. I'm gonna fill the trough with foam tack. Glue this down. Perfect. And then I'm going to guide my wire through the trough that's already there. So now if you're watching, I had plugged this in already, and when I realized my mistake when I plugged it into my Y lead through my receiver. When I did this up and down, this one was going up and this one was going down. So it wasn't correct. But now, that looks much better. And the rudder should work the way it should. So I'm just waiting for that glue to dry, and then we'll put our cover back on, and crisis averted. All right, so I want to show you guys quickly the mix page on the on my Futaba 10J transmitter of how I set up my mixes. Now again, remember I put in a reverse servo now, so I have two Y-leaded channels for my thrust vectoring. So both of them pretty much look exactly the same, so I'm not gonna take you through all the buttons, but basically what you're gonna go through is to your P mix that you see here, and you'll see that I have two mixes, elevator to aux 7, because that's where my pitch leads are plugged into, is my 7th channel, and my rudder to aux 8 is where I have my Y-leaded rudders. So if you were doing this normally, the way the kit comes, you only get one Y-lead, so you would do the rudder as I have it, but you would have two elevator mixes, and when I get in, I'll show you, but one would basically be positive 100 and one would be negative 100 when you're in there. But real quick, I just want to show you, anybody who's never played with mixes in their Futaba, and this is going to be your first time, when you go into a mix page, this is what it looks like. All right, so you have the ability to change the rate for low and high depending on, you know, what you're trying to go with. You have master and slave, so like right now this is flaps. Your elevator is slave to the flaps. That's silly, but you change that. You could set a switch. That's what SW is for. The position of the switch, so whether you want it to react when it's up or down or center, if it's a 3-position switch. Then the ability to turn on your trim for your mix. So some mixes you want to be able to trim in the air. And then up here, this turns the mix on or off. I'm going to back out of that, and I want to go into a complete setup. So let's start with the one with the rudder. So this is what you'll normally do. Regardless of your setup, you can Y the rudders together. They're gonna work perfectly. So when you go in, you could see that based on how I set it up, I have minus 100 for both directions, left and right. And then I have no trim on. I turned my mix on at the top. I didn't need an offset, which would be like, you know, that'll help you sort of sub-trim it if you wanted to. But then I have my master is the rudder, and the slave is the channel that the Y-lead for the roll is plugged into for my thrust vectoring units. I have it in the position of down, so when my switch is down, that means it's on. You could set that to up, but I like to know that the switch is flipped for what I want. And then I have that on the H switch, which is the top of my transmitter, the top right. So that's how it's set up. And then if I back out, when you go into your elevator mix, since I have them wide together and I did a reverse servo, it looks exactly the same. I have it on the same switch, same down, except it's now the master is elevator to aux 7 rather than rudder to aux 8. And everything else is the same. But if I was doing this without a Y lead and just as they came without replacing the servo, one of my mixes would be negative 100 in both directions. Again, you change directions. And then the second mix everything would be the same, except these would be positive 100. And you just have to test that in the transmitter. You'd be doing this while you're plugged in, and you could watch what the elevator does. So that's it, guys. That shows you the mixing page. Again, I ended up going with a reverse servo just to make it a little easier for myself. Since I only had 8 channels available, I needed 3 Y leads. The kit only comes with 1 Y lead because the way you're supposed to set this up is just Y in your roll, but not Y your pitch. You're in essence gonna need 3 open channels to do a proper thrust vectoring the way it comes in the kit, because then you'd plug each pitch lead into its own channel that's available and then mix each one of those channels individually. And again, it's pretty straight stuff if you use a Spectrum, JR. They all have their mixing menus. They might look a little different, but that's in essence how it's gonna work. But if you wanted to do with an 8-channel receiver like I have, again, 3 Y leads. I Y'd the the BEC, that's going to give power. I wide that through my flaps, so that's in the flap channel. Then I have a Y lead for both my pitches and my rolls in the thrust vectoring servo. But you can see they work beautifully as is. That's my up and down, my pitch. And with the rudder, I have them in roll. I still haven't mixed them yet, but the plan is to take it out, put it up high, flip it on, and just see how she reacts. The only other jet I've ever flown thrust vectoring is the Freewing Su-35. That's a much lighter, whole different animal than this one. That thing I expect to be far more aerobatic than this one's gonna be with the thrust vectoring, but you should be able to do some high alpha stuff, and I can't wait to give it a try, if anything. But hopefully, guys, that helps you out. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments description. It wasn't that hard for me to set this up as is. The thrust vectoring videos I've already done on the Su-35 and the Gripen as well. A lot of that stuff can help you get through the mixing menus too, because it's virtually identical in how it's done. And again, I'll answer any questions about this setup in the YouTube comments, and you can always head over to Hobby Squawk. That forum link is going to be in the description of this video, and you can talk to pilots who are flying their MiGs with the thrust vectoring unit already. So again, guys, thank you for joining me, and I hope this helps, and we'll see you next time at Motion RC.